Always, you know this, to ask permission before you call.
And now here comes the answer in how.
2.
How many times does a rabbit have lunch?
How can you stay as cool as a cucumber? Amen.
How sensible is sport? How can I give you stick?
Well, that'll make a nice change, old boy. It's normally me giving you stick, isn't it?
This time I've turned the tables. Gail?
You could stick to the story. That'd make a nice change as
Yeah,
well.
that would be a different plan to usual, wouldn't it? OK, the challenge is this, right? You will find a lolly stick in front of you. The challenge is to throw the lolly stick. You can't put it down, but to throw the lolly stick in the air so that it lands, not flat side down, but on its edge. And I promise you, it's not a trick. It can be done.
I don't think it can, because you just did it and it didn't land on its edge, but... Oh,
Oh,
no.
try
I
again.
thought that was
Go
going to do it then. I'll do 2 at a time,
Yeah,
see if
go
they
on,
knock each
yeah.
other into...
Oh,
No, it
bad
cannot
luck,
be
Gareth,
done.
It's not bad luck at all. I can assure you, scientifically, mathematically, geometrically, whichever way you want to look at it, it can't be done.
No.
I'll show you a way you can look at it in which it can be done. Right, one lolly stick, thrown down on its side.
Oh, what a scoundrel.
And that's how I can give these two stick. And that's how.
What a fiddle. How can you tell your right from your left?
Oh, that's easy. I've got a device I always use. I always wear a watch on my left hand, like that, so I know that the other one is my right... Oh.
You had to think about your left hand as well there.
Yeah,
as well.
I did, yeah.
No, I'm talking about how we call the sides of ships port and starboard. Now, for this particular how, we have to go back to the ancient Vikings.
Do we?
Yes, we do. Now, they had ships which looked a little bit like this. And on the back, they had a large steering oar called a stay oar. The side of a ship, the side of a boat in Viking was board, so stay oar board, starboard. OK? So far, so good.
Right.
Now, Gareth, we need a harbour for our ship to come
Just so
sailing
happens
into.
I've got one here for you.
Well done. We'll stick it just there. Now, because the oar is on the right-hand side, the ship had to dock on the left-hand side, OK? And everything was loaded on the left-hand side. The Viking for load was lar, the Viking for side was board, larboard, starboard, larboard. Get it?
But it's not larboard and starboard, it's port and starboard.
That's a good point, Gail. I'll come back to that one later. But they stuck with those words, larboard and starboard, over the centuries, even though ships became more and more advanced, and even though those words did cause 1 or 2 little problems.
I say, bosun, this gale looks horrendous. I said, gale looks horrendous. Must say, I don't fancy those rocks to starboard. Steer the ship to larboard.
Turn the ship to starboard.
No, I said steer the ship to larboard.
Hard to starboard, sir.
No, I said steer.
Land on, Captain.
A trifle late, bosun. Well, obviously the words larboard and starboard were causing confusion, so in 1844 the Royal Navy decreed that the left-hand side of ships would be called port, because that's the side the ship goes into port. And to this day, that's how sailors tell their left from their right.
Hey, good, Fred, but it wouldn't go overboard.
Oh.
How many times does a rabbit have lunch?
Well, rabbits eat lunch every day like the rest of us, I
Once
suppose.
a day.
Well, I mean, how many times does a rabbit have the same lunch? I want you to meet a gorgeous little friend of mine. This is Jasper. And he's a rabbit, as you can see. And rabbits are herbivores. That means that they only eat plants. And plants are full of really tough fibre that's really hard to digest. And different animals that are herbivores, cows for instance, they have 4 stomachs, so that's how they break down all the fibre. But bunny rabbits have a different way of dealing with the problem. Right, here's Bunny having lunch. Now, to get enough nutrition from plants, rabbits have to eat loads of them. But there is a problem, because their stomachs are too small for all that bulky fibre. So Bunny keeps the juicy, nutritious parts of plants inside his intestines to break them down, but gets rid of all the useless stuff. And the tough fibre that's of no use ends up as the little brown pellets we all know and love. Right, wash your hands, Bunny. Don't forget to wash behind your ears, because it's time for bed. Now, all that useful plant stuff is still sitting inside his intestines. After a few hours, poor Bunny just has to answer nature's call. But the stuff in his intestines is only half digested. It still contains loads of lovely nutrients, and flushing it away would be a terrible waste. To get the most out of it, Bunny does a bit of recycling. Now, unlike the first lot of droppings, these are small, green, and really quite tasty. Well, at least if you're a rabbit. Bunny's early morning snack sends all that half-digested food back to his stomach for a second go.
Would you like one? I made them myself.
Oh, no thanks. So how many times does a rabbit have lunch? Well, twice. Once to get rid of all the fibre, and the second time to get as much goodness out as he can.
Fascinating. How can you stay as cool as a cucumber?
Oh, you know me, Fred.
Yeah?
Oh, I'm the master of cool.
You are, but when you're out there in those cool shades, you're really going to look for a nice ice-cold drink. Perfect
true.
on a hot summer's day. The trouble is, when the sun gets at it, the liquid inside gets warm and it doesn't taste so good.
You know what you need, Fred?
What?
You need one of these things. It's an ice box. I take it with me on hot days. Keeps everything cool. Me burgers and me drinks.
It's big and it's cumbersome. You don't need it. All you need to stay really cool is some of this bubble wrap.
Fred, I think you've completely lost it now. Bubble wrap is for keeping fragile things like little statues, stop them from getting broken.
Well, yes, but it will also keep your can nice and cool. You see, each of these little bubbles contains a little pocket of still air, and heat finds it very difficult to get through and at your can. So I'm going to show you how to make a really cool bubble wrap can holster.
Right,
What
it's
about
very
that?
cool,
Fred.
Is that cool
Yeah.
or is that cool?
That's
eh?
double cool.
It's treble cool, Gareth. And I'm going to show you how to make one of those. What you need is an empty crisp tube, like so, which you will cut to just slightly larger than the can you wish to go inside. When you've done that, you're going to cover your tube with some really cool, groovy paper. Then when you've done that, around it you will wrap some bubble wrap, like so, cut it to the right size and sticky tape it down. Here's a really good tip, a little bit of bubble wrap inside on the bottom for complete insulation.
Oh, good, yeah.
Then of course you're going to need your belt holder, and that's a little bit more bubble wrap, folded over a few times and sticky tape together, bend it into that sort of shape and sticky tape it to your holder.
And that'll hold
Like
it,
so.
will it?
It will hold it as good as anything. But I did say, how can you be as cool as a cucumber?
You did.
That's how, with just a few tiny pockets of trapped air.
How tall are you?
6'1".
Are you, Fred?
No, you're supposed to do it metric, Fred. I'm 1.78 metres, Gail.
goody
Are
two
you
shoes.
sure about that?
Yeah.
Positive.
When's the last time you measured yourselves?
Well, a few weeks ago.
6
No, I
months
mean,
ago.
what time of day was
What
it?
time of the day?
Yes.
What difference does that make?
It makes a big difference, Fred.
How?
I'll explain. Gareth, come over here.
Yeah.
Now, jump up onto my new little invention here.
This looks good.
Marvellous contraption
What are these bits for?
that I knocked together earlier on. Put your feet in that rope there.
Yeah.
Good boy. Lie back. Put your hands in here.
What,
We'll just make sure you're nice and secure there.
what is this
Wouldn't want
contraption,
anything
Gail?
to go wrong, would we?
Yeah.
It's a rack.
Eh? Oh! Aha!
Believe it or not, when you see Gareth on telly, which is usually around 4:45 in the evening, he's not actually at his finest. Now, this rack will help to show Gareth at his very best. And it's all because of how the spine works. You see, when you get up in the morning, your spine, which is nice and rested, you've been lying flat all night, is lovely and long and straight. Then once you get up, the effects of gravity and your own body weight mean that throughout the day, the spine compresses. It squashes down because the liquid in between all the little bones is displaced. And not only that, you actually get a curve in your spine. It curves inwards at the bottom and outwards at the top. And that curve squashes down as well. And that means that by the end of the day, your spine can be about 18 millimetres shorter than when you actually got up in the morning.
But what's this got to do with sticking Gareth on the rack?
Well, this rack, thank you for reminding me, Fred, will hopefully show Gareth off at his very best. Just one more.
Gareth, I didn't know you could be so tall.
So how tall are you? Well, most of us are actually taller first thing in the morning than we are last thing at night.
How sensible is sport?
Very sensible if you want a well-muscled, finely honed, hard body like
Don't
mine.
say it like yours.
Well, it's entertaining. I don't know about sensible, though.
Well, many of these sports in the modern-day Olympics originate from skills which were really useful in ancient times. Take, for instance, the javelin throw. Now, in the days when we had to hunt our food, being able to throw a spear accurately was a very useful skill indeed. And this applies to other Olympic sports as well.
Relay races, running with messages.
Exactly, Freddie, yeah.
Swimming.
Swimming.
I've always found a very handy way of not drowning.
Yes.
Exactly. But what if you lived in a place where the useful skills for daily life, Fred, put that on, were different from the skills that we recognise? Take, for instance, if you were an Eskimo Indian. Well, the Eskimo Indians have a sport where you have to, it's called the stick pull, and the idea is to test your grip on a slippery stick. Well done, Freddie. Now, that would be a very useful skill if you're an Eskimo Indian, because you might have to handle slippery, wet fish a great deal.
So different lifestyles mean different sports.
Exactly, Gail. In the Arctic, everyday life used to involve fishing and hunting seals in the frozen wastes. So, in the World Eskimo Indian Olympics, competitors take part in sports which came from these essential survival skills. Walking the greased log, fish traps are often set on logs across rivers. The Alaskan high kick tests the kind of balance you need for jumping across ice floes. And the arm pull tests the muscles you need for kayaking, or canoeing as we know it. So those are skills from the Arctic, and the modern-day Olympics get their skills from ancient Europe. But what if sports were inspired by our daily lives?
How do you mean?
Well, I'll show you with the How To Super Modern Day Olympics. The first new sport could be inspired by a very useful modern day skill. This is the 10-metre office chair sprint. On your marks, get set, go! And, McKenna breaks away early with incredible traction from a long heel. Downs turns around in an illegal move to cross the line second, and it's a win for the most attractive young Scouser. Next event, the 150 millisecond button push as the contestants are up at the podium. Time starts now. Oh, there's a certain amount of psyching going on there, and McKenna makes a wonderful lead with button pushing. This, of course, demonstrates one of the skills useful for living in modern day life, as we spend so much time on games consoles and on computer keyboards. And the plucky Brummie veteran takes into the final few seconds of this round here with an incredible performance, and it's a win for the aging Brummie. The final event is inspired by a very useful 21st century ability, being able to stay in bed on a Saturday morning when someone's trying to get the duvet off you. And they're psyching each other out, the competitors, and they've started, they're off and away, they're down, he's gripping, pulling, gripping, but Gail McKenna seems to have the upper hand. Perhaps it's that determination as she wins another heat. Victory is hers, defeat only for the sad lamented Dinage. So, how sensible is sport? Well, very, if it's based on useful everyday skills. And that's How for Now!
Look, what are you doing up there? You didn't even take part in the Olympics.
Look, it's my how. I get to stand on the tallest
Not
spot.
only that,